Joel Embiid ducking Nikolai Jokic. JT Realmuto ejected from a spring training game. And redemption. There's some of the topics we're talking about today on Trending in the AM. I am out of the bathroom finally. We start in 30 seconds.
Holding, gets around in front.
And Philadelphia has it.
And a very good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. We're live, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill. Like, share, retweet, follow on all social media platforms. But do us a favor, hit the like and the subscribe button. Turn those notifications on the DSM Media YouTube page. It's the best place to get interactive with the show. Drop your comments, thoughts, questions, concerns, anything about any of the conversation that we're going to have today. We got a lot on the agenda today. Again, I am your host, Phil Stiefel. Beard of Knowledge on Twitter. We got Jason Voorhees sitting in again today next to me because I didn't know if I was going to get out of the bathroom or not in time for the show. You know, I was stuck in the bathroom after the show yesterday, and people are still giving me advice on how to get out, Jason. That Twitter post of the picture of my lock and doorknob breaking in my bathroom yesterday is still getting notifications, and people telling me how to get out. If I'm still trapped in the bathroom almost 24 hours later, we got a problem. I don't think people read those timestamps and don't realize I got out a little while ago.
When I saw it, I was just like, man, I was following along, and I just said, only Phil, these kind of things.
So for those that don't know and that don't follow me on Twitter, yes, yesterday after the show, I went to the bathroom before leaving for work. The doorknob broke completely off of the bathroom, locking me in the bathroom, and no amount of power and no amount of MacGyverisms was able to get me out of there. Luckily, my man LJ was home, not too far away, and he was able to come to my – I called him last night. My knight in shining armor saved the day and got me out of the bathroom. But anyway, that is beside the point. Just when you respond to a tweet, just look at the timestamp first, because if I'm still stuck in there now, we got a problem. We got a big problem. If I'm doing a podcast from the middle of the bathroom, we've got a problem too, you know?
But let's just clarify. If you had to, though, you would, because you wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if I had to, yeah, I'd do it. No, I did do a guest appearance on a podcast once in a hot tub.
Yes, I remember.
Do you remember that? I was on vacation. Somebody needed me on a show. I said sure, but I forgot about it, and I was in the hot tub. So I set my phone up, and I did it live from the hot tub with all my Manchu hanging out and everything.
Oh, that was classic, brother.
I kind of forgot all about that. That was funny. That's funny. All right. So, Jason, we got lots to talk about today. We're talking Sixers. We're talking Eagles. We're talking Phillies. We're talking redemption. We got lots on the agenda. I want to start with last night's Sixers game. I don't think we need to spend a whole lot of time on it. Obviously, Joel Embiid did not play. James Harden did not play. They only lost by, I believe it was 116-111 to Denver Nuggets. They were severely shorthanded with both guys out. But the stories to me that come out of this game is kind of what we talked about a little bit yesterday, but then also some of the stories that were coming out as the game was getting ready to tip off. And that's Joel Embiid not playing. And the national narrative that everybody, the Kendrick Perkins of the world, all the big name guys, saying that Joel Embiid was ducking Nikolai Jokic and didn't want to face the other MVP candidate one-on-one, so he was sitting this game. Now, I understand that the national game, people wanted those two and, you know, playing and facing off, and maybe Doc Rivers should have found other opportunities to rest Joel. But do people not realize that the last time the two of them went head-to-head was that Saturday game? You watched that Saturday game, put up like 48 points against Jokic, completely just dominated, manhandled the guy. And they think that Joel is ducking him when he knows he could just destroy that guy on any moment's notice. Like, what is with the fact that the national narrative will always be so negative towards Joel Embiid? Because, quite frankly, it's nauseating, it's frustrating, it's exhausting, the national narrative.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's just about against no. I wouldn't say the national narrative has an issue against Joel Embiid. We talked about this for a whole season about the Eagles. It's a national narrative
Yeah.
against Philly.
Yeah.
Like literally,
The stars of Philly.
single Philly star gets like second-rate treatment when it comes to the national narratives, and it's bullshit. I agree with you, Bill. I think Kendrick Perkins. I mean, to me, that's he's being a troll. Anybody that's watched this season knows that Joel Embiid is the MVP. Like it's
And real quick, Kendrick Perkins is a guy that for a while, when he first retired and got into like the broadcast analyst business, he was a troll right from the get-go. But over the last couple of years, if you don't follow him, Jason, he's gotten better and more unbiased and down the middle, and he still has his bold personality way of saying things, but the trolling has kind of curtailed a little bit as he's matured as an analyst. But that yesterday was just stupid.
Yeah, and of course it's getting a rise from us because obviously,
And that's we go into that all the time with the Dan Cilios or Dan Cilio or whatever his name is, and the Chris Sims of the world that always want to troll and clickbait us for attention. But with Joel Embiid, it's one thing with Jalen Hurts because Jalen Hurts is in this whole year. It was his second year as a starter. Joel Embiid has been in this league dominating for a long time. He is not well, maybe he'll be good. We don't know. We know that he is the best center in basketball and one of the best players in the game, one of the most dominant forces of all time. So if you want to criticize anybody, Kendrick Perkins or anybody out there, you criticize Doc Rivers for not resting Joel Embiid on the back-to-back in Phoenix and Golden State. That's when you rest him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to interject. I will say, I don't think Joel Embiid helped himself by his comments that he made last week.
Correct.
Tired. Because, and I was thinking about this, and I thought long and hard, but like, did you ever hear a guy like Kobe Bryant or LeBron James? Well, LeBron James did it, but he's played, 20-some years almost in the league. But a star athlete actually announcing that they're tired. Like, it's okay if he is tired, but you shouldn't be announcing that to the league in an interview because I think it makes you look – it almost makes you look weak, like as if you are ducking something. Like, he should have never said that. And I think he probably, if he had the chance to go back, he probably wouldn't have said it. But I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that, like, that's not an excuse to come at the guy. But, he probably put himself in a bad position.
But see, it's as Mark's saying here, it's poor load management by Doc Rivers. And then, see, I didn't stay up to watch the game. There's no way I was staying up to watch that game last night. That they made a comeback in the fourth quarter. And I was reading some reports and I was, studying how the game flow went. And you talk about Doc Rivers' poor load management, not resting Joel when he had the right moments, but then you forced to rest him at the wrong moments, and then in the game itself, you start Dwayne Dedman, who is literally a dead man walking. Like he's a waste out there. Okay. He was a -10, -11 in his short stint as a starter. And Paul Reed played 16 minutes last night and was dominating. But then at the start of the third quarter, Doc Rivers goes with the small ball lineup, starts PJ Tucker as the center, not Dedman, and Paul Reed still can't get on the floor. They make a comeback. And with 2-3 minutes left, Maxey and Reed are sitting the bench, and you've got your Delaware 87ers or Blue Coats or whatever they're called out on the floor. Like Doc Rivers' inability to make these kind of decisions in these moments the correct way. Again, I've said it, Jason, and you'll vouch for this. It's not Joel Embiid. It's not James Harden. If we do not make it out of the second round, it's going to come down to one thing, and that's Doc Rivers. And look, I'll still give him credit. He has had a great season in compared to his last few seasons as a Sixers head coach. He is better this year. But the same mistakes still keep getting made on a weekly, nightly basis.
I thought James Harden was supposed to play last night.
It was a late scratch for him, for sure. No, Joel, you might as well give him one more day off. The reports are that he will, as soon as they get home, which is what's today? Today's Wednesday. I think Thursday or Friday's their next game. He'll probably play in that game, and so will Joel. I think both of them at this point, if the playoffs would have started, both would be playing right now.
Yeah, I agree. It's poor load management. He had an opportunity to rest him quite a few times recently and didn't. So you know, hey, listen, how much of the blame goes to Daryl Morey? I mean, can Daryl Morey as a GM step in and say, "Yo, guys, like, what are you doing?"
Yeah, I
Like,
mean,
I don't know.
it's the management, not the players. How about instead of calling out one specific person, we'll just say it's all the leaders, the managers, the behind the scenes guys, and not the players' fault, because deep down inside, Joel Embiid wants to play against Jokic. I mean, he'll say all the right things, that he only cares about the title. He doesn't care about the individual awards. But Joel Embiid's personality. Joel Embiid loves the limelight when the stars are the brightest. Last night, the stars were the brightest because it was against Jokic. So he wanted to be out there. So, you've got to prepare him to be ready for those moments. And, whatever, it's over with. He got his rest he needed, which is great and important. There's 7 games left in the season. Now let's see where they give him another. He's going to need another break at some point. Let's see if they do it against Boston, which is going to be a big game, or against Brooklyn or Atlanta, one of the lesser games. It's let's see where they use that moment to give him another break.
Well, what was mind-boggling to me, like you said, that the comments saying that he's ducking. First of all, the fact that Joel Embiid missed last night should not in any way curtail him from still being the MVP. He missed one game because of load management. Like, it's not like he missed the game, or it's not like he missed 10 games and, Jokic went on this 40-point 10 game in a row scoring, parade.
Right.
I mean, why is one game gonna make the whole MVP thing go?
I agree. I mean, I was already getting into it with people on social media about that. I mean, he's missed 14 games this year. So if he plays out, that'll put him at 68 games played out of an 82 game season. And you're telling me that if he would have played 69 games out of 82, he's the MVP. But because he played 68 games out of 82, he's not the MVP? Come on now. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous right there. That's just not wanting Joel Embiid to be the MVP. And if you have an MVP vote and you change your vote because it went from 69 to 68 games played, I mean, let's talk about it. At what point is too many games missed to be an MVP? Is 68 out of 82? Is it 65? Because it could be 65. I mean, he could be set for 2 or 3 more games. Is it 60 out of 82? Like, in your mind, how many games in an NBA season out of 82 do you need to be playing at a dominant level to be?
There shouldn't be a set level.
So just hold on. If he averaged 40 points a game, 20 rebounds, 10, like insane numbers, never been seen numbers, but only plays 50 games, is he still the MVP?
Yeah. Because
okay, all right, that's fine. That's why I'm trying to coax your answer out of you that way.
I'll show you on a large scale view of why I believe that. Because in my opinion, the Hall of Fames in any sport should somewhat be like the MVP. Like, MVP is best player of the season. Hall of Fame should be best players of their eras or whatever. So you have I'll use an example, a guy like Sandy Koufax in baseball, who only played 9 seasons, but it was 9 dominant seasons. So he's in the Hall of Fame because he put up astronomical numbers. Same thing with a Pedro Martinez, missed a lot of time. He's a Hall of Famer. You can't say, because he missed all these games, he had a 1.15 ERA in 30 games started. He missed 2 games, so he shouldn't be the Cy Young. Dude, that's a ridiculous way to look at things. If Joel Embiid right now, we all agree this season has probably been his best. He's every single season he's gotten better. We said he was robbed 2 years in a row of being the MVP. He's most definitely deserves it this year. And now you're going to say, because he missed, X amount of games. No, he's not.
No, I don't quote me on this. Don't guarantee me on this. But I remember hearing it a few games ago, somebody talking about it. So Embiid's now missed 14 games. Well, I don't know if he's missed any games since then, but at one point, Jokic had missed 9 games, 8 or 9 games this year. So we're only talking about we're talking about 14 games from Joel Embiid, but really we're talking about a 5-game difference between Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic, and that's what is confusing to me. It's not like he's played all 82, and as Mark said, nobody plays 82 games in the NBA anymore. Nobody. No stars. Maybe some bench guys do, but no stars play 82 games anymore. It's just impossible. The way the schedule's written, the wear and tear, and the meaninglessness of the regular season to an extent, you don't play 82 games. So you got to compare the difference of the 14 games he's missed to how many games has the next guy on the list missed. And it's a 5-game difference.
Should an MVP not only be the player that puts up the most dominating stats, but also the player that is most valuable to their team, where when they're not in the lineup, the team struggles?
Yeah.
Well, whose team struggles more when their star player isn't in the lineup? Denver or the Sixers? I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the record is of the Denver Nuggets when Jokic is out of the lineup. But again, Joel, look, we don't have to argue about Joel's, candidacy. He obviously, as Mark says, he passed the smell test. He's the most dominant player. Yes, I get that. We all know that. We all agree. It's the argument that the national writers are going to make. Well, he missed X amount of games here or there. And that's what needs to change is don't look at the 14 games missed. Look at the fact that he's only missed 5 more than the next best candidate in the Joker and Nikolai Jokic. And I think that's where the argument needs to go. It's not the 14 games, it's the 5 games. And that's it. And 5 games is nothing out of an 82-game season.
Who else would be in the conversation? Giannis?
Yeah, Giannis is always in it. He's always in the conversation.
Luka?
Luka would have been. Him and Dallas is a crazy situation right now with Kyrie. I think it was a couple days ago I saw the stats, so I don't know if they played since then. But the two of them combined on the floor, Luka and Kyrie Irving, are a combined 5-13 win-loss record. They've actually fallen out of they've gone from the 5 or 6 seed in the West to out of the play-in series. I think they're the 11th seed now. They have, as a team, gone something like 6-20 since that trade. Like, they have completely just fallen apart. So since Kyrie went to Dallas, Luka's candidacy, he was my number 2 guy, actually, like a month ago in the NBA. I'm like, all right, if anybody outside of Joel gets it, it better be Luka, because Luka's dominating Dallas with no star help. And yeah, he gets the star help and he's just completely just crash and burn there. So Luka is out of the equation. Giannis is in the equation always. I guess Tatum's probably in the conversation, but it's really just the 3-man race for MVP right now.
Well, it really should be a 1-man race.
It really should be. And I just think it's, again, it's frustrating, the national narrative focusing in on 14 games versus the big picture, which is a 5-game difference. So I don't know. I can't believe I wasn't planning on spending much time on the Sixers today. But we just spent 18 minutes of the show on the Sixers. So let's lighten the mood a little bit here, Jason. Let's turn the channels to the Phillies here. And we're going to talk Phillies and Eagles and redemption and talk about these teams a lot for the rest of this show. But I want to start with a little fun. And I'm sure you've seen the video. Did you see the video of JT Realmuto getting thrown out of a spring training game yesterday? I mean, was that not one of the most asinine, idiotic, dumb, I don't know what you want to call it, one of the dumbest things you've ever seen in baseball? And I have the video somewhere on my Twitter page, and I'm trying to pull it up real quick. I wasn't even going to share it, but we're going to share it. For anybody that hasn't seen it, here's the video I am talking about. Just a simple JT Realmuto pulling his glove back at the wrong moment, and this umpire ejecting him from the game. Let me tell you something. I got to ask you, first and foremost, you have to laugh because it's a spring training game, right?
Yeah.
But if it was not a spring training game, do we have a referee problem in referee/umpire problem in sports? Because I kind of feel like we've got a problem. Because something like that is just completely and totally inappropriate, insane. Referees, umpires in all sports are always trying to make the game about themselves. Now, that umpire, I can't remember his name, but I do remember reading he's a career minor league umpire. He's got over 2,000 games as an umpire in the minor leagues. He's part of the minor leaguers that get called up in spring training to get a little big league experience because he's like the backup. If somebody's got a miss, he gets called. He's that first guy called up when an umpire needs a break or something like that. So he has called big league games a few times. That's just a guy trying to show up JT. I mean, there's nothing JT did there that was wrong. And could you imagine that happening in a regular season game? Could you imagine that happening in a playoff game? And we see it. I didn't watch any NCAA basketball this weekend, but everything I saw Cole's watching right now, Cole and everybody else that, tweets nonstop about March Madness, everybody bitching and moaning about the bad refereeing in the final or the Elite Eight games. We talk about it in NBA games that refs, change the course of a basketball game.
Do we have a problem?
Do we have a problem with refereeing and umpiring in sports?
We do. And just watching that video again, because I saw it yesterday, but like watching it again, it's
real quick. Adam's saying Denver's 3-5 without Jokic, so they're not winning a lot of games without Jokic either. So okay, thank you, Adam. Sorry, continue on.
It's almost like the guy was just pissed off about something, and he was just looking for a reason to throw somebody out of a game. That's literally how it looked to me, because he did nothing. Like, it's not like JT punched the guy or something. Like, he literally moved his glove. Come on.
He wasn't looking at the umpire. What, is he supposed to hold his glove out there for 10 minutes till the umpire tapped his glove and said, "You're good"? What was he supposed to do there?
I don't
And
know.
you could see the look. If JT had been jawing about the balls and strikes called all game long, you would have seen a different response. The response on JT's face, what? What just happened? Literally, he was stunned. He was shocked. So, it's a spring training game. Who cares? It's a few less innings on JT's knees. But still, that's a legitly that guy should not be called up to the majors ever again, as an umpire.
Rob Thomson about it after the game?
I did not. I mean, I'm sure they did. I did not follow up because it was just such an absurd situation that, it's – I don't even know. The part to me that bothers me is that I feel like the play before, I thought I had read this before. The play before, the umpire had thrown the ball to Kimbrel because they needed a new ball. So JT just thought he was throwing the ball back to Kimbrel again. I think I did read, Kyle, at some point that, Kimbrel had made a motion like he was looking up to the sky to catch the ball, and that's why JT pulled his glove back. But in sports in general, the holding refs and umpires accountable, they say they do. They say they grade these guys after the game, and whatnot. But do they really hold these guys truly accountable? Because you see the same refs time in and time out. I mean, Angel Hernandez, he gets criticized all the time for his bad balls and strikes, and he makes the game about himself. He's the biggest umpire name I can think of off the top of my head. But he's still out there every single week. There's literally a Twitter account that tracks every umpire's balls and strikes in every game and puts up a percentage of accuracy. And Angel Hernandez is the worst every single time out there. Yet he still gets put out there every single week. And that's the problem. There's no accountability to any of these people that ref or umpire sporting events. Angel Hernandez should be, knocked down a peg when he has one of these bad games. This guy, I look at it and I saw that they asked the umpire, the crew chief, after the game about the play. And the crew chief's like, yeah, he did the right thing to throw him out there. Well, no. Now you're just sticking up for your guy. You don't have to throw your umpire under the bus, but you could say, well, we're going to look into it more after the game, after we have time to talk about the situation. But instead he just
do to warrant being thrown out of a game.
They didn't say. His response was it was a warranted decision, and we support him 100%.
Okay, whatever.
And that's just the umpire sticking up for his buddy. But on the flip side, don't say anything. You don't have to throw your guy under the bus. Just be like, yo, we're going to discuss it more in detail after the game's over or after the press conference is over, and we'll see how we can make him better. Instead, you just make yourself sound stupid too, saying that it was a good play, when it was clearly idiotic, stupid. And again, spring training, it don't matter. But if something like that happens in a regular season game, we got a problem.
I agree.
Is there a rule in baseball that an umpire can go back on their ejection? Or once you're ejected, you're out, no matter what?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I mean, I'm just sitting here thinking, could have been, ejected, and JT's like, yo, what's up? And he could have said, all right, my bad. I didn't mean to throw you out. I overreacted. You could stay in the game. But he obviously didn't. You know what I mean? I wonder if that is even a legit possibility.
Plausible.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'm ready to move on from that. I don't care. I just thought it was funny, stupid. It's a ridiculous conversation that we have to have. But in sports, this is just becoming too big of an issue. The referees and the umpires. So before the game yesterday, the Phillies made some roster adjustments. We're starting to see this roster. The final roster hasn't officially been announced. Today's the last spring training game. They're off tomorrow, and then Thursday's the first game of the season. Cody Clemens, Scott Kingery, sent back to the minors. Jake Cave and Guthrie, it seems like, are the final two guys that made the final two bench spots. Are you surprised by those moves at all? Or do you think that that's the right way to go to balance up so it means you got Harrison, you got Sosa, Stubbs, Cave, and Guthrie as your 5 bench guys?
I'm a little surprised because I'm not surprised about Cave. Cave had the best spring of any player, so I think
he's also probably got the most big league. He's not a great big leaguer, but he does have big league experience.
Yeah, earned it, but I'm a little surprised about Guthrie. I'm not a huge Guthrie fan. I would have rather have seen either Kingery or Cody Clemens. I think Cody Clemens is a lot of pop, and I think Scott Kingery did a good job in the spring, and I thought he would have made it, but you know what? Who am I? I'm just chasing the podcaster. I'm not,
Well, I mean, the thing with Scott Kingery is, you would have had to cut. So he's not on your 40-man roster anymore. So you would have had to cut somebody to get him, on there. And I get that. But, I'm just curious. I mean, he had a good spring. The kid, I mean, he's not a kid anymore. I think Scott Kingery's like 29 years old now. I mean, at some point, why don't you just release the guy, honestly, at this point? You know what I mean? Why send him back to the minors? You spent all this money. You invested all this money in him. You've now spent even more money and time readjusting and refixing him. There's got to be someone on the 40-man roster that you could have cut to give Scott Kingery one final shot. And it would have been like I keep talking about all these, this negative energy I feel coming from this team, because of Hoskins, because of Nola, just bad luck things happening. Wouldn't a Scott Kingery comeback story be a great story to kind of energize, to maybe pick up the clubhouse? Because he's been around a long time. Those people know Scott Kingery. He's probably somebody that the rest of the locker room, would love to see have that redemption arc. And we're going to talk redemption here. So to start with redemption, wouldn't it have been a great story to have the Scott Kingery redemption story this year? But instead you go Cave, who had a good spring, but also has had awful career in the majors. He's not like this stud, guy that's been, just reacquired in the offseason. He's whatever.
Yeah, I mean, listen, but I still think sometimes in spring, you get good look. Well, he had a lot of playing time, especially with the guys being at the World Baseball Classic and a lot of the roster being away. But you got to remember, like, he did this against like lesser.
I get that, and I understand that. I just, I just didn't see, like, the difference between a Guthrie or a Cave and Scott Kingery to me is very negligible. And I just think that the story and the vibes you would get from giving Kingery that spot to start versus Guthrie or Cave just maybe provides a little bit more intrigue, a little bit more fun, a little bit more excitement.
I think Cave earned it, but I think Kingery should have made it over Guthrie. I don't think Guthrie did anything in my mind eye-popping or eye-opening. If, he's some stud. But
for some reason, last year when he was called up, the team, all the rumors are they're very high on Guthrie. I'm not sure why, but
listen, I was the same way last year about Nick Maton and Matt Vierling. I mean, I was just never sold on either of those two, and they ended up being traded.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's a great point. If we're worried about who Kingery or Cave or Guthrie made that final spot, if those guys have to play a vital role in this team, then this team's in trouble, right? For as I want to talk redemption and Ryan Rothstein. He's great. Hold on, who is he? Is he WIP or the other channel? He's WIP. Ryan Rothstein. He's a good guy. He's not the typical dial guy, and very interactive on Twitter. He put out a tweet this weekend for one of his weekend shows about who has the better chance at redemption in their next season, the Eagles or the Phillies. And it made me start thinking who's got the better chance because they're both in a prime spot right now. But, this Phillies team, with the negative feeling I'm feeling from this Phillies team is very top heavy, in my opinion. And there's a lot of bottom question marks, in my opinion. If we're worried about Scott Kingery's redemption, that means that we've got a problem, right? If that was to come into play this season.
Yeah, I mean, that question on the surface, I think it's an easy question to answer.
Okay.
On the surface, because I think if you look at the two sports, baseball is much harder. Baseball
Absolutely.
is much harder to get back once you get there. A lot of things have to happen. And you also you have to look at it as the Phillies are in one of the toughest divisions in baseball, whereas the Eagles are in one of the easiest divisions in the NFL. So I think you got to look at where the two teams are placed. And you've said it. How often have you said you have to look at timing in sports as much as you do other things?
Mm-hmm.
I look at the timing right now, and I think this Phillies team has a chance to be good for a while, like a good amount of time, because they have Trey Turner, they have Bryce Harper, they have Schwarber, they have Castellanos, who hopefully turns it around, but they have a ton of pieces in place for a long time. Whereas in the NFL, it seems to me like the Eagles roster changes every 2 years. They're making a lot of changeover. We've had a huge amount of changeover. However, to me, I think, in my opinion, and obviously we could discuss this, that's why it's a great topic, I think the Eagles have a better chance at redemption this season compared to the Phillies. Because I think the Phillies will win a championship. I don't necessarily know if it's this year.
Yeah, it's funny because I think that the question, who has the better chance of redemption, if you said this year or big picture, would change the answer. And I think the answer also is reflected in the fact that there's no salary cap in baseball and there's a salary cap in football, which makes redemption easier versus harder. And Howie Roseman spoke at the owners' meetings yesterday or 2 days ago. I was reading some of his quotes yesterday, and he said, Jalen Hurts we want to get Jalen Hurts by June under a long-term deal. We expect it to be done, and it should be done. And it has influenced him in some of his decision-making. When you've got a guy and you have a salary cap and you're going to have to give a guy $400, $500 million, whatever it may be, it has to influence the way you manage your roster, manage your draft capital, manage everything. And that's why they have the best. And that's why I joked about going all in this year. However it is, draft or make the trades for whoever, just go all in. Because you've got this window right now, as you said it, the NFC wide open, which I want to get back to the NFC in 1 second, being wide open. But it's wide open, so you go all in now. Because you could get back to the Super Bowl in 2023. There's literally no doubt about it. Now, on baseball side, you've got Trey Turner, Harper, et cetera, like you said. But, you lose Aaron Nola. We don't know. How many times did we have young stud prospects in the minor leagues that didn't pan out pitching-wise? So you don't know. But yet in baseball, if they don't redeem themselves this year, it won't be hard for John Middleton to go out and dump $500 million in free agency and literally flip the switch again. And that's the thing. In baseball, you could just keep spending to fix your problems, opposed to football.
Yeah, and that's why I think,
like, if you'd say who has a better redemption in 2023, it would be the Eagles, right? But who would have the better chance of redemption over the next 5 years? Phillies. It would have to be the Phillies, right?
It has to be, because listen, in football, things change on a dime. I mean, listen, Jalen Hurts, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I believe, me and you are the biggest, we've been supporters of Hurts. But I witnessed Carson Wentz, who I thought was a great quarterback, have a great season, and then all of a sudden his career just went. Yeah. And I'm not saying that'll happen. More than likely, it's not going to happen with Jalen Hurts because he's built differently. But I can't ignore the fact that I've seen it. I've observed it happen to a lot of teams quite often. And listen, the Eagles, yes, it's the timing thing, because they have the time now, but sooner or later, some of these other NFC teams are going to start getting better again. It's going to happen. And then it's much harder for the Eagles. So
I want to give you a little off the subject, but also on the subject, redemption, timing, all that. Obviously news came out yesterday from Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson put out a big piece on his situation. I have opinions on the Aaron Rodgers situation. I think it's insane, but at least I have some idea what's going on. The Lamar Jackson situation, I have no clue what's going on there. I can't understand how this guy isn't locked up in Baltimore or been traded. I don't. And it got me thinking as we talk about timing in sports, and the Washington Commanders were one of a few teams that actually said, we are not in on the Lamar Jackson sweepstakes, which is insane to me to think that they have no desire for Lamar Jackson. But the only thing that could change the outcome of the NFC being the Eagles and then everybody else is if Lamar Jackson gets traded to an NFC team. And that is something I can't understand what's going on there. But, man, if he comes to an NFC team, whoever it may be, that team instantly becomes a better team and puts a little bit of pressure on. Then you'll have to hear the conversation, who's the best NFC quarterback, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson. We'll have so many storylines and so much happening. Do you have any idea what the hell is going on with Lamar Jackson? He definitely doesn't want to be in Baltimore, Kyle. I don't get it. Baltimore should have just opened up the checkbook for him.
I saw a tweet that you put out about there was I believe 26 teams that they all should be in on Lamar.
Yeah, unless you're the Eagles with Jalen Hurts, the Bills with Allen, Bengals with Burrow, Herbert, in San Diego or LA, and who was the fifth one? And Jalen Hurts. So unless you're one of those five, Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, unless you're one of those five teams with an elite quarterback, every other team should be in on Lamar Jackson.
I agree.
Not even no question. Literally no question to it.
I know what's going on. Obviously that marriage is over because Lamar is at his wit's end and he fit. But I mean, listen, dude, it is a business. We've talked about this. We're talked about it with Nola. Sometimes teams are going to have a stand and they're going to say, well, because Lamar asked for $250 million, I believe.
Well, supposedly he was already offered $250, but it wasn't enough guaranteed for him. The problem is Deshaun Watson ruined the quarterback market by getting, after everything that went on with Deshaun Watson off the field, him sitting out of football for so long and still getting a fully guaranteed $250 or whatever it was, he ruined the quarterback market for everybody else. And Lamar Jackson thinks he's better than Deshaun Watson. And he probably is. You know what I mean? So, he wants more. And if Jalen Hurts signs the next extension, then Lamar Jackson's going to want more than Jalen Hurts. If Joe Burrow signs the next thing, Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson are going to want more than Joe Burrow. That's just the way the quarterback market plays out every year. Problem is, Lamar Jackson doesn't have a team to play for right now. And that's the problem.
You know what I would love more than anything else? I would love if the Jets.
Yeah, I tweeted that out yesterday. The Jets should just pivot and say, you know what, Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay, we're good. We'll go get Lamar Jackson instead. That would be the ultimate. I'll do it off camera. I do it always off camera. F you to the organization and the player.
And I'd be laughing because Aaron Rodgers is one of the most arrogant, one of the most unlikable athletes I've ever.
See, I want that deal to get done because we both agree. We hate Aaron Rodgers. He's arrogant. He's a POS, whatever. But he's still a great quarterback. And I don't want him on Green Bay. As long as he's on Green Bay will always be a factor. They won't always be great or a Super Bowl factor, but there'll always be a team you have to worry about because Aaron Rodgers is a great quarterback. Aaron Rodgers just doesn't have this anymore. He doesn't have a heart in the game anymore. He's just looking for paychecks right now, which I don't understand why, because he obviously doesn't need the paycheck anymore.
He's out worried about flat earth things. And
he's out there, his darkness retreats, man. Honestly, I kind of curious on what goes on in an Aaron Rodgers darkness retreat. What kind of, I thought these players got drug tested. I guess Aaron Rodgers doesn't get drug tested in the offseason because, there's something being passed around at these darkness retreats. And, I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, he's a strange bird. That's for
he is. But the whole Lamar Jackson thing, would change a little bit of the situation if he came to an NFC team. But really, the redemption story, it centers around, does does this Jalen Hurts contract that's looming change your redemption? Just say Jalen Hurts gets his big deal. Does that mean that the Eagles have to go all in on this season? Or do you have faith in Howie Roseman to, pull what the Phillies have a chance for the next 5 years, 7 years, whatever it may be? The Eagles, is it a 1-year window or is it a big window because of the Jalen Hurts contract? You look at all the Super Bowl teams over the last 5 years, 7, 10 years. Very few of the winners have the quarterback on the highest paid contracts.
That's a hard question to answer, Phil. I think it evolves, and it depends on Howie, and it depends on the league. But I think like I said, my answer is firm that the Phillies are better long term. The Eagles have the better chance at winning this year. Like as far as redemption goes. Now, I could be wrong. The Phillies could make the World Series again, but like I've seen teams like you saw the Astros who just beat us. The Astros have been in or near the World Series for like 5 or 6 years, and they lost.
Even with all the suspensions, they're still one of the elite teams.
So sometimes getting there and losing actually helps you in the long run because it gives you that taste. I mean, you saw it with trying to think, just so many teams. Like you can go throughout history and you see teams that kind of build towards a crescendo. I remember, I know you don't like them, but the Mets, the '86 Mets, because I watched that documentary. That's why it's on my mind. And it showed how they really got good in like '84, and then '85 they got even better, but they lost, and they all like had that mentality that we're going to get back there and we're going to win it. And that, so it could happen with the Phillies. But I'm just saying, if you look, you asked the question, so I had to answer it. I think the Eagles are set up better for this year.
The other thing that came out yesterday during the quotes that I read from the Howie Roseman conversation at the meetings, he did talk about the Chauncey Gardner situation. And that's the thing about Howie Roseman is that is it crazy? I can't even believe I'm about to say this. I have more confidence in Howie Roseman than any of the other GMs to keep a team relevant, big picture.
What did he say?
So I'm going to get to that. So Howie Roseman said he was asked multiple times about the Chauncey Gardner situation, and he said, yes, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was my number one priority at the start of the offseason. And we made a long-term offer to him, basically hinting at bigger than the reported 3-year, $24 million deal. So basically he said, I said to Chauncey and his agent reps and said, here's the contract, big deal. One of the highest paid safeties in football. He wanted to go test the market because he didn't think it was enough. He waited. He said, I waited. I gave him time. But you can only wait so long until you got to go to plan B. So that he flat out said, James Bradbury was not part of my first plan, but I couldn't wait any longer and risk losing both. So I pivoted to Bradbury, got the Bradbury deal done. He didn't mention Darius Slay's name once. So it almost feels like Darius Slay being restructured was always part of the plan. You know what I mean? Like it almost feels like the Darius Slay being cut, but then restructured, re-signed. It was similar to the whole Fletcher Cox situation last year. I think that deal was automatically already being worked on from the get-go. But he pivoted to Bradbury, got the Bradbury deal done because he couldn't lose both. And then Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's group came back and said, yo, we're ready. And Howie Roseman's like, I don't got that much money anymore. So it's almost like it's exactly how I said it was playing out. And what Howie Roseman's comments were basically reiterated that I didn't need sources. I just was able to read between the leaves and figure out that that's exactly what happened.
I'm not going to lie. I'm happy that we got Bradbury over Gardner.
Oh, I said that on one of my Stay or Go series. I was all for. I said everybody called me nuts saying that James Bradbury in the short term was the better decision over Chauncey Gardner-Johnson.
He is.
I also said I would have kept him over Darius Slay. Luckily, we got to keep both. But James Bradbury, you have two lockdown corners like that. It makes everybody else better on your team.
It makes it easier.
It makes it so much easier.
I mean, now you don't have to go into the draft saying we need a corner. I mean, you could get one later in the rounds, but you don't need one. Safety, I mean, listen, yeah, you could still draft one, but you can hide the ills of a safety if you have good corners, but you cannot hide the ills of bad corners even with a good safety. You can't.
I agree.
it's a known fact. So I think they did the right thing. And, at the end of the day,
I mean, if the other would have happened, though, if it would have came out that, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson signed right from the get-go and we lost Bradbury, we'd still be just as happy. If we had Slay and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, whatever, I wouldn't have been upset about it. But this whole process showed the lack of maturity on Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. And that's why he's in Detroit on a 1-year, $6 to $8 million deal.
His agents deserve a lot of blame, too.
Absolutely, his agents deserve a lot of blame.
I mean, that's called, mismanaging your, reading.
Absolutely.
And not.
There's literally no doubt in my mind on that. It just goes to show, though, what my whole point is when we're talking about who's got the best chance of redemption. And I put Nick Sirianni and Rob Thomson on the graphic for today, thinking that the coaches have the most influence on who's going to be the better team that gets back to the title game or wins a title for this city. And realistically speaking, I almost feel like Howie Roseman has the biggest influence out of both teams over the whole big picture here, that Howie Roseman's work will give us the answer on who has the best chance at redemption over the next year. Not Dave Dombrowski, not Nick Sirianni, not Rob Thomson. It's going to come down to Howie Roseman and what he does.
I mean, I can't disagree with you. And you know how I am with Howie Roseman. Like, I was his biggest critic.
I was right there with you. I mean, I've turned the page. I'm ready to say in Howie we trust. And I've turned this page now for about a year now. But, you have to have faith. But also, there's people that criticize Howie Roseman. He's made his mistakes over his career. We've got the 10th and the 30th pick in this draft. What he does with those picks is going to set forth everybody's talking about Jeffrey Simmons or whatever his name is, from the defensive lineman from the Titans. What it would take. Would you trade the 30th for one of the best defensive tackles in football? What he does to go all in or build for the future determines if they're going to get back to the title game this year or not. It really does. I mean, Dave Dombrowski and the Phillies, we see what they are basically at this point. We know what they are basically at this point. They might make a move to patch that first base position together eventually if all fails, but we know that, there's not much more to do with the Phillies. Howie Roseman can influence the Eagles this year, but also for the next 5 years with what he does this offseason.
Absolutely.
It's funny. I told you I wanted to talk a little wrestling. It's WrestleMania week. I'm a wrestling fan, always have been watching since the 80s, and Junkyard Dog and Hulk Hogan and Hulkamania. And I want to segue into this with the one thing. I wasn't watching the whole Raw last night, Monday Night Raw. I was watching the Sixers Raw, flipping a few different things, but I saw it pop up on my social media feed that Austin Theory, he's a young up-and-comer. I don't know if you know who Austin Theory is. He's the WWE's U.S. champion, whatever. It's a mid-level championship. He's got a huge match. John Cena's coming out of retirement to fight him at WrestleMania. And Austin Theory's promo last night, it's almost as if, and Austin Theory is not from Philly. I don't even know what his real name is, Austin Theory. But he basically quoted every cliche saying outside of rent is due that Jalen Hurts has used over the last year, basically wrote his promo yesterday. So Jalen Hurts and the kind of person that Jalen Hurts has become is actually transcending outside of sports. He's influencing literally, wrestling, like everything outside of it's not just the Eagles or football. He is becoming an influence in a broader scale. Isn't it crazy that Jalen Hurts, like literally 6 months ago, everybody thought he was going to be the worst quarterback in the world. And now he's literally influencing everything. That really talks about Jalen Hurts. I disagree with this, Adam. I don't think Cody Rhodes should be the next champion, but that's not for now. That's for a later discussion.
He's just built differently, bud.
He really is built differently, Jalen Hurts. That you can literally see a wrestler that is seeing this, and literally, because these wrestlers, when you're champions or when you're on the grand stage, they don't have like a script written for them. They have, here's your bullet points. This is what you got to talk about. Go come up with your script. What are you going to say? And then come back to us. And he went and said, all right, I've got to talk about this. All right. Oh, Jalen Hurts said this. Jalen Hurts said that. You know what? I'm going to use those lines. And then WWE's like, yeah, absolutely. We want you using those lines. I just think it's something special that, Jalen Hurts' influence is just growing so massively.
Agreed. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so you're a wrestling fan. Obviously Adam is saying that he thinks Cody Rhodes is champion. Do you have any moments from WrestleMania history like that you were like? Because I know for me, like I was a wrestling fan as a kid, like the late '80s, early '90s, WrestleMania, Hulkamania, and whatnot. But then it kind of dropped off a little bit. But then when WrestleMania came to Philly, WrestleMania 15, I forget what year it was, like 98 or something like that, 97, and seeing the grand stage at whatever the Wells Fargo Center was called at the time there. Oh, see, Adam Cease with some good information. Austin White is his real name. Thanks, Adam. I appreciate that. I remember that. You had the Monday Night Wars and Goldberg versus Austin and The Rock versus Hulkamania, the NWO, all that stuff. That kind of reinvigorated my attention, and I've been a fan ever since. But what's something like from your childhood or even recent memory? This is like the Super Bowl this week, WrestleMania.
I mean, so it's hard for me to pick one. So
yeah, there's so many of them.
I went back last night and I was kind of like trying to remember. Like, obviously, most of my wrestling fandom was in the same era as you, the Hulkamania, obviously, because I used to watch. Aaron and I used to. His grandpa was a diehard. Like, he watched every single wrestling match of every single with all the different things. And so we used to watch it. I would go over Aaron's house and we would just sit there and watch and enjoy wrestling. And my greatest memory from probably that era was, I think it was WrestleMania 3, I want to say, when Hulk Hogan body slammed Andre the Giant.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't like a technical, I'm guessing Aaron's on the Sports and Metal page right now saying Savage versus Steamboat. That was a masterpiece of wrestling. Hogan versus Andre, it wasn't no masterpiece, but it was the storytelling involved with it. And that moment, yeah.
Not that it necessarily was like a great match. It was just seeing this behemoth of a man pick up an even bigger behemoth and just slam the guy.
It was a huge moment.
And obviously that Aaron was much more of a fan than me as far as wrestling. But
so Aaron, I'm just gonna say, Aaron, I think Steamboat, I think he's the most underrated technical wrestler. He's probably one of the 2 or 3 greatest wrestlers of all time, technically speaking, and he doesn't get the credit he deserves whatsoever. I agree with that. That's my opinion right there. Hulk Hogan is not a wrestler. Look, you can say what you will. If you haven't gone back and watched his matches from when he was in New Japan, the guy could do drop kicks, enziguris, and every other wrestling move. But Hulk Hogan, the character, did not need to do that in the WWE or WCW or whatever. Absolutely agree with you on this. One of the 3 to 5 greatest of all time. Absolutely love the guy. One of the best of all time for sure. WrestleMania memories for me. I remember I go in and out of stages. Like sometimes I'm a huge fan. Sometimes I'm just distracted. I don't watch a lot. But every time I come back to wrestling and get reinvigorated, it's because of something. And I won't lie. It's cheesy. It's dumb. But in a recent memory, when Brian Danielson made his run with the Yes Movement and everything, he was on Sports Center and whatnot, the small guy overcoming the odds and doing it. The story was written so well, and it was so organic where the crowd forced them to change their plans. It's obviously scripted. They had a script and a plan for WrestleMania. And Daniel Bryan's ability to force the crowd, to force management to change plans. I mean, it kind of reinvigorated my passion. It's one at a time. Kurt Angle, he brought me back into wrestling multiple times. And Daniel Bryan, I think that was one of my favorite memories of the last 10, 15 years of how he was able to look. If I'm trying to find a way to compare it to sports, it's kind of like the Nick Foles. He was the nobody, the backup quarterback coming in and leading the team to the Super Bowl. That would kind of be similar to Bryan overcoming the the odds and forcing his way into a championship match, the main event. Shawn Michaels is great. Shawn Michaels, everybody talks about Shawn Michaels retiring Ric Flair. I think his 2 matches back-to-back at WrestleMania with the Undertaker, and the one I forget when he came out the Undertaker's all in black, and he came out all in white with like the godlike lights on him. That to me is one of my favorite memories. The moonsault he did off the ropes onto the Undertaker, onto the floor, all dressed in white. I mean, it was special. Like, they got the entertainment factor. They knew how to put on a match in the ring. But Shawn Michaels was probably the best combo of wrestling, but also, I don't want to say acting per se, but storytelling and putting on a performance. So that'd be that. So,
no, it's okay. My favorite wrestler of all time is the Ultimate Warrior. But I actually enjoyed, probably of the newer era, I enjoyed Undertaker. I thought his persona, like, he wasn't necessarily the best wrestler, but like Undertaker's persona and like how those like I watched quite a few matches with him that were just like almost like just knockdown, drag down. Obviously, he had that undefeated streak for that long time. Mm-hmm. I think it was WrestleMania 30 when Brock Lesnar fought him.
Yep, that was he. It was the first person to beat him. Yep.
So I mean that. Listen,
I gotta agree. I gotta agree with this one here. The Ultimate Warrior. The only thing that I'll ever say about the Ultimate Warrior was when he got inducted after decades of being away from wrestling, and the WWE inducts him into their Hall of Fame, and the night after WrestleMania, he comes out into the ring on Monday Night Raw, gives a speech talking about beating his last breath in the moment, and literally he was basically, telling people he died that night after giving that speech. And then you go back and, watch that speech again and realize, like, it's almost like he knew that was his last night on this earth. You know what I mean? It's crazy. It's crazy. And that moment is like, I don't know. It really hit me hard. When you hear him say those words and then he passes away, it really hit me. And I was never an Ultimate Warrior fan. Never. I thought he was, I would have taken 10 Hulkamanias over the Ultimate Warrior. I really would have. But I mean, it was a really sad moment there. Yes, the Great Muta is in the Hall of Fame this year. I do like that. Yeah, the Sting and him were just wrestled the Great Muta's final match in Japan recently, from what I've heard. Anyway, we're going to talk a little bit more. Yeah, Sting was great. I'm a big Stinger. I was always a Stinger. Surfer Sting, Black and White Sting, Joker Sting from TNA. Always been a Sting fan, Aaron, for sure. Aaron, maybe you're free this week. We'll have you on later this week if you got a morning free, and we'll just talk WrestleMania and make some WrestleMania predictions, my man. We're going to wrap up Trading the AM there for the day, though. Again, make sure you like, subscribe, follow us on all social media platforms. We're back tomorrow. More Trading the AM. Who knows what's on the agenda tomorrow? I don't know. We'll see. You got to tune in to find out. For Jason Voorhees, I am Phil Stiefel. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
And Philadelphia has it.